Hi, sweet friends. You are so smart for coming to the VIP after party because this is where even more juiciness happens. There's so much brilliance, there's so much wisdom that these amazing humans contain that there's no way we could fit it into one conversation in one podcast. And today I'm so excited because Aubrey Marcus, who has been doing deep internal exploration for his whole life, but specifically for the last 24 years, is going to take us on a ride today where we get to shift our future self by shifting our past self. And I'm so excited for this. And thank you so much, Aubrey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd like to open with a story. And as Emily mentioned, I've been on the psychonautic adventure for 24 years. And psychonautics is the exploration of your inner psyche. And I've used a lot of different techniques and practices, from meditation to flotation to sensory deprivation, both in the black of a darkness retreat and a sweat lodge, and of course the sensory deprivation tanks, to hot, cold, to all breath work, to ecstatic dance, so many different practices, but also the psychedelic medicine journey. And in one particular psychedelic medicine journey with a substance called Yopo, which is an active DMT snuff, which I was given by a shaman. I was probably 20 at this point, so 2 years after my first psychedelic journey when I was 18. I was still carrying a lot of trauma from my childhood. And that trauma was really focused around one single incident in New York when I was about 6 years old. And my father, who did his very best, and I have so much praise for so much that my father offered, he struggled with rage. And something about something I said, I think it involved my stepfather because my parents were divorced at that point. He marinated on it and it developed a really intense rage. And I was with him at a hotel in New York, and he cornered me in the corner of the hotel room and kind of, not violently, but like pushed me down into the corner of the room and was towering over me and was just yelling at me, just yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling. And I was just sobbing, and I just kept saying, like, I love you, Dad. I love you, Dad. I love you, Dad. But he wouldn't stop, and he just kept going and kept going. And that was, of course, an intensely traumatic and, very emasculating moment. So in this ceremony, going fast forward, I'm 20 years old, and I look pretty similar to how I look now. I was big. I was like in the weight room a lot. I was a good athlete. I'd been a trained martial artist for many, many years. And I was a lot bigger, stronger, tougher than my father by the time I was 20. So in this, and this all sets the context for the journey. So in the journey, I don't know what to expect. I think I might go, I don't know, see jaguars or something. I didn't know what was gonna happen. But it took me right back to that hotel room. And it took me right back to being that little kid in the corner of the room. Except I wasn't just the little kid then. I was also my 20-year-old self. And I stood up and I looked right at my father in my vision. And I said, do that shit to me now, Dad. Do that to me now. See what happens. See what fucking happens if you do that to me now. And that was a reclamation of my own manhood, where I actually got to go time travel back in time and meet that little scared 6-year-old boy, but show up as my man self that I am now and say what I would say to my father if I had that power back then and if I had that courage. Like, you don't fucking talk to me like that. Like, I may be sorry for what I said, whatever, but you don't fucking talk to me like that. Like, nobody talks to me like that, corners me in a room, right? And I got to do that. I got to live that experience out. And in living that out, that was probably the first time that I was really able to claim my own manhood. At that point, it was like, I'm a man now. That diminished, emasculated version of me as a boy then got to step forward and become a man and overcome that overbearing pattern that was created from my father. So I've thought about that a lot. And what I've realized is that our experiences in the past, they're just memories. They're just memories that have been encoded and implanted in our minds. And we have the ability, we don't need medicine to do this. We have the ability to go back into any one of those experiences. And again, this requires immense courage and, all different reverence and caution for anybody who has traumatic, like truly PTSD traumatic experiences, because you may need assistance to really go there. And I definitely recommend that if it's something that's particularly intense, because accessing those memories can be very unstabilizing.
Yeah, we want to make sure that if you are going to do this, and if you're intending to go to a traumatic memory, and sometimes we don't get to choose, sometimes something comes up. So I would just recommend that you feel resourced, right? That you feel hydrated, rested, that you could phone a friend if you need afterwards, and a journal handy, just because sometimes when we visit trauma or revisit trauma, when we're not well resourced, it can re-traumatize or like reopen the wound. And that's certainly neither one of our intentions. So as long as you feel resourced and you have the buttressing that you feel safe to do this, that'll just give you the freedom to explore within with the depth that this exercise will allow.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I was so grateful to have my guide there, the shaman who served me the medicine, to just hold that space for me. Mm-hmm. And because eventually when I finished with that, I just collapsed down into the fetal position and was just sobbing. It wasn't like I just charged off into the wilderness. Like, there was a lot of grief that came after the expression and the reclamation of who I am. There was a lot of grief of all the years that I lived holding that. And so letting that all go and having her just give me a blanket and be there to just put her hands on me and just be like, it's all right. Like, that was absolutely key and necessary. And again, this was a very, very intense version of this. And I think there's smaller versions of this that, might be more worthwhile to start with. Mm-hmm. Start with something small. Maybe don't go for the giant encounter with
most traumatic event
exactly.
in your life.
But the invitation is to come back into those memories with the entirety of who you are now, and actually replay them with your imagination, replay them in a different way. So I got to replay that memory in a different way. I got to repattern. I got to say things to my father then that I couldn't say at that point. So this could be things that you that you wish you would have said to a partner, or things that you wish you would have said to your parents, or things that you wish you would have done, or ways that you would have been acted. And then allow yourself to go into that memory and actually, through your imagination, just pattern that different story, and a different story of how that was. And so that's one aspect of the practice. The other is to acknowledge, the virtue and the value that whatever that trauma and that experience gave you. For me, the value of that experience is my father was flown into a fit of rage because of something I said. And I didn't know that what I said was even offensive. I wasn't tracking that. But with such a strong penalty for saying something offensive, I became hyper aware of how my language could be interpreted. It made me a master communicator. So the two parts of this are, one, you acknowledge the gift that comes from the wound. And I became an incredible communicator because I was aware of how my words could be taken. And I was also aware of the fragility of the human psyche and how things could be manipulated. So all of that communication is now paying dividend right now when I'm speaking. Like, I'm able to communicate in a way that's a superpower. So you get gratitude for the experience, but also you get to rewrite the experience so it no longer carries the traumatic charge. And the combination of both, I think, really allows you to change your whole attitude, perception, even memory of the past. So that if someone asks me, like, I'm so sorry that happened to you, I'll be like, fuck you. Don't be sorry that happened to me. Like, I'm glad that happened to me. Look what I got to do. Mm-hmm. Like, how dare you try to say, I'm sorry for what happened to you? How dare you? And it changes the way, and I genuinely feel that. Like, I wouldn't change any of these things that have happened in my past. How dare you say, I'm sorry that happened? No, like, this gave me so much. And so this two-part process allows you to, what I like to say, to change your past so that you can change your present and your future.
So I'm curious, is it in the memory, and I know you're going to walk us through it, but you're living out or doing the thing you didn't do or saying the thing you didn't say? It's not about your present self communicating something to your past self.
Well, it's actually taking in, like, you're in the First Nations kind of ideology, they call them skinwalkers, where you could, like, step into the body, right? Like, so you step into the body, but you get to bring all of the resources, or even invent resources of somebody more courageous or even more powerful than you even are. But you step into that memory of that former self of yours and then relive the situation. Say what you want to say. Imagine the response to that. Imagine what happens and actually get to relive that in a different way so that when you access that memory, it'll forever be linked with this new memory you've encoded of what it was like when you stood up there as your version of the 20-year-old self who was strong and resourced and wasn't going to take any shit anymore. You get to go back and step in and do that. So that memory no longer is of you in this kind of vulnerable, wounded, position, but you actually claiming your power.
Yeah, beautiful. Like neuroplasticity, rewiring trauma.
So I would say when you're ready to do this, again, what you said, Emily, make sure that you're resourced. I actually think it would be better to have somebody there with you who actually understands, somebody that you've watched this video with, somebody that you really resonate with, somebody that you trust, somebody that you wouldn't flinch at all if you shared whatever the fuck you were going to share. And you may not have that relationship. In that case, just have somebody, again, that you can call or somebody that you can talk to that can really help support you if this really brings up something. So find yourself in a place where there's no inhibition, where there's not a flinch. It's not, you can't do it in your room if somebody's across the way and you're worried that they're going to hear you. Anything that's holding you back won't allow you to really fully express exactly how you would express, because you got to make it real. You got to make it real in your body. So when you're ready, go into that experience. And of course, whatever practice you might want to use, whether there's additional support with medicines, which again is going to intensify. So be very mindful if you're using medicines to do this. But breath could help you get there. Breath would be meditating beforehand. Really, whatever is going to actually allow you to step in. So step in and then bring the fullness of who you are now with all of your wisdom, all of your strength, all the reclamation of your power, and then move through that experience and reprogram that memory and re-encode this memory on top of the other one. And when you're finished, and you can do this more than once if you want, you can go through it. I think I reiterated the same thing probably 10 times.
Wow.
It wasn't like I just said it once and that was enough. It was like I just kept going. Express the grief or express whatever else that you feel, that this brings up. Allow yourself the full permission to fully express it. And then when you're writing in your journal later, then try and identify what gift that experience gave you. Not to just the reclamation that you just did, but what gift the original experience gave you, what adaptation, what thing that it brought into your life. And that's the twofold way to really alchemize some challenging experience of your past.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for this prompt, for the gift of this ritual. I really want to encourage you to do this. Take the time, put an hour on your calendar or 30 minutes on your calendar, because that's the kind of thing that might not ever be urgent until it's really urgent, right? So we do this work ahead of time, then we get to sort of get ahead of these big catastrophes that will happen as a result of the unprocessed trauma. And so thank you for giving us an exercise to help us to explore it within, and some tools and some buttressing to do so. And I would recommend those of you who are Ziva graduates, if you drop into your practice, you're already playing with time, right? You're moving beyond the realm of thinking and therefore beyond the realm of time. And so to go from the everythingness, from that Gyan-Khand in that liminal space afterwards is a really powerful time to access that younger version of you. And as you up-level that younger version of you, you will up-level the current version of you, right? Because consciousness is only ever expanding and evolving. And that will in turn up-level the future version of you, which is coming back and visiting you right now. We do this upward spiral enough times and we create something called a Rashi, which is this huge surge in consciousness, which might look like an awakening or a Kundalini awakening or enlightenment or who knows, but we just keep doing this. We heal ourselves in the present. We do this beautiful exercise that Aubrey just gave us to heal ourselves in the past, and this changes the trajectory of future self. So this might be, might not feel as sticky and as charming as scrolling through Instagram, but I promise you take the time to do this, you will be getting your hands on the wheels of your own consciousness, which is selfishly going to be a gift to you, but it's also a gift to all of us, because as we heal ourselves, we help to heal the collective. So Aubrey, thank you. It's my
pleasure, sis.
I love you.
I love you too. I really do.
Thank you, sweet friends. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.